Hello, everyone. This is Hope from Pros Before Bros, and I am back with another video after almost a 3 week hiatus. Finally getting my voice back. I'm so happy. But anyways, I wanted to kind of touch base with you all and let you know where I am with some books. I actually finished up 10 books so far for the month of January, which I'm shocked I did that much. It pays to get sick, evidently, because I spent a lot of time reading while sick. But I did finish up 10 books. My goal as of right now for the 2019 year, and I know I'm not going to hit it, it's a very lofty goal. I'm trying to do 250 books for not the month. Oh, geez, wouldn't that be terrible? For the year of 2019. So right now, since I've got 10 books kind of under my belt, we're looking at finishing about 4.5 books. We'll round it up 5 books every single week. So we'll see where that goes. Might have to make some adjustments, but I did finish some books, and so far this month has been really good. So I wanted to go ahead and go through some of the books. Sorry, I'm looking down at my other phone here. Go ahead and go through some of the books that I finished reading and just kind of tell you where I'm at with them, what my thoughts were. So let's see here. The first book that I am going to be talking about this is one of my new favorites, and I'm shocked that I enjoyed it as much as I did, but it is Broken Beautiful Hearts by Kami Garcia. Let's see. It looks like she was the co-author of Beautiful Creatures. That's why her name sounded familiar. And yeah, I just noticed this. This is crazy. It's an advanced reader's copy. I've never read it up here on the top. That's crazy. You're not supposed to sell those. Okay, whatever. Let's just get back to the book. But I really enjoyed this book. I actually picked up the copy from the library. And this is very few in between, but like if I read something that I really, really love from the library, I'll go ahead and buy the hard copy because I know I'm going to eventually, excuse me, I'm going to eventually want to read it again. This is one of those books. And again, I was stunned that I enjoyed it as much as I did. But it is, I'm just going to go ahead and read the back and I'll tell you what I gave it. But let's see. When star soccer player Peyton Rios receives an offer from her first choice college, her senior year starts off exactly as planned. But when Peyton uncovers her boyfriend's dark secret, she confronts him and finds herself falling down a flight of stairs. Peyton's knee and maybe her dream of going pro is shattered. Everyone is talking. Was she pushed or did she fall? Peyton knows the truth even though no one believes her. And let's see here. And then it goes on to say he has to let someone in before it's too late. With her future on the line, Payne goes to stay with her uncle in a small Tennessee town to focus on her recovery. Dating is the last thing on her mind until she meets sweet, sexy Owen Law. But Payne doesn't trust her heart, especially when she senses that Owen is hiding something. When their secrets are finally exposed, Peyton has to decide if love is worth fighting for. So I really, like I said, I'm really stunned that I enjoyed this book because it's not something I particularly lean towards. I'll read contemporary romances from time to time. But sometimes I think they're too wishy-washy. This was actually quite the opposite. It was really interesting. It kept me captivated. Peyton is a very strong character. One thing that I really enjoyed about Peyton is that she wasn't one of those people that was going to play victim to a really, excuse my language, shitty circumstance. She was really hard-headed, and I like when she moved to Tennessee after she encountered what happened between her and her boyfriend. She made it a point that she just wanted to move forward. She didn't want to focus on the past. She just wants to move forward to her recovery. And she made that very clear. So I really enjoyed that aspect of her character. The only thing that really kind of troubled me is she there's a scene where she is inside the bathroom at the high school because she's a senior in high school, and there's a interaction between these preppy girls and this one particular girl. The preppy girls were being mean to her, and instead of having the of confronting them in maybe a little bit more of a diplomatic way, she confronts them by bullying the preppy girls, which I just felt like, okay, why are you bullying them? Because they're bullying somebody else, do something constructive about that. So that was the only thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But I really like the fact that she's very strong-headed and strong-willed. And she was just wanting to move on from a really crappy circumstance. So I ended up giving this book, I think, 4 stars out of 5 on Goodreads. But it definitely is worth reading. And it's not extremely tropey. It's kind of a slow burn. I wouldn't say it's insta-love. I wouldn't say it's full-blown slow burn, but it has a very steady pace with it. So it's not love at first sight, which is another thing that I really don't like sometimes with these books. But yeah, this was a really good book. So if you want to have an opportunity to check it out, you should. The next book that I picked up is actually a book from the library, and I picked it up on the fly. It's the graphic novel Snow White by Matt Phelan. I hope I said his name right. And this is a retelling of Snow White, but it's set in 1928. And I was just really intrigued by, just that, retelling, because you don't see that much of a retelling of fairy tales in the 20s. And it was really cool. Not my bookstore, my library does themes each month, as any library typically does. And their theme for this month was the Roaring '20s. So they had so many books, and it just touched base with every particular person could think of. They had children's books talking about the 20s. They had adult books, and then they had books driven towards young adults. And this would be perfect for a young adult. So it's 1928. It's New York City. It's pre-Depression. And it's this little girl, her name is Samantha, but her mom always called her Snow. And just like the fairy tale, it follows the story of her, from when her mother passed up to the point she meets Prince Charming. And it's just so neat how they did it. The mother actually passed of, they don't say it outright, but you could tell immediately from the drawing that she passed of tuberculosis, which was really prevalent back in the 20s. But let me show you some of these drawings. I mean, it's just gorgeous. So this is the scene where the mother passes away. And you see she's coughing one minute, and there's a bloody handkerchief. And I mean, these are just such beautiful pictures. I mean, whoever did the artwork on this, I'm assuming it was Matt, did such an incredible job. And they show where, the daughter is sent off to a boarding school. This was really cool. I like the historical reference on this. It shows the father looking at the stocks for that day, and he has like a special mechanism, and you see these sometimes inside those old movies from like the 30s that's recounting what it was like to be in the Great Depression. It's like a little ticker tape, and it tells them, what the stocks are doing. And of course the stocks fall, and it just gets bad. But it's just so neat, and they do so many different things with this, story. And the 7 dwarves are actually not the 7 dwarves. There's 7 orphans in the story. So back in the 1920s, it was common that if you couldn't afford your children, that you would ship them off to a relative that could, or you would take them to an orphanage. And actually, that actually happened to one of my family members. her parents couldn't afford her anymore, couldn't afford her family anymore, her brothers and sisters. So they ended up in an orphanage. It's really unfortunate, but that was the reality of what the Great Depression really was. And these kids are basically living off the street. They don't have a backstory. So you never hear, why they ended up being on the streets, whether their parents kicked them out or if they ran away from an orphanage. But they actually take Snow White under her wing as she's walking in the streets because she just got kicked out of the house. And she finds out that she better run because eventually she's going to end up getting killed. She's going to end up getting whacked, so to speak. And they end up saving her because these two thugs were following her and trying to make advances. And they end up saving her, which was really cool. But here's another graphic of the famous apple scene. And this, the stepmother dresses like a hag after finding out that she's not going to get any of the inheritance until Snow White dies. So she dresses like a hag and poisons the apple, and you guys know where the story goes from there. But it's just so cool how they did it. I was just so impressed with it. The only thing that I wish they could have done more of is have some more dialogue in it, because a lot of it is just pictures. But it doesn't hurt the book at all. I still gave it 4 stars. And the way that Prince Charming comes about is really cute too. The ending is just adorable, and I'm not going to give it away, just in case you want to read it. So that is Snow White by Matt Fallon. And let's see, what year was this made? What year was this published? 2016, so it's not that old. So definitely check that out as well. And then let's see here. The next book that I finished reading that I actually had on my TBR for the month of December. I keep talking like I had a TBR. I really didn't. I was just going with my own thing. Can't talk. Words in Deep Blue. And that was by Kath Crowley. And I talked to you guys a little bit. Excuse me. Sometimes it still comes up, I was talking to you guys a little bit about this book a few videos ago. And the book follows the story of Rachel and Henry. Both of them work at a bookshop. Rachel has been friends with Henry for several years, has obviously, with these kind of relationships, you start off as friends, and then sometimes it grows to a little bit more. And it does in this case. And Rachel tries to confess her love by leaving him a love letter inside one of his favorite books of poetry. She ends up going away for a little while, comes back, and she's disappointed because he's never mentioned it. And it turns out he didn't know anything about the letter because he never received it. But this is kind of their story about reconnecting. Rachel has a tragedy in her family that forces her to come back, and she's clearly not the same person that Henry remembers. She's just very morose, depressed all the time. She doesn't want to laugh. She doesn't want to engage in a conversation. And a part of it is because she's bitter with him. But additionally, she has so much guilt about losing, going through the situation that she did. She lost a family member. And it was very traumatic how she lost them. So she's working through her stages of grief, and she's trying to figure out what's going on with Henry. And at the same time, she's bitter with him too. So it's kind of like a growing pain. They eventually get to a point where they have a resolution. I really enjoyed this book. It did get some mixed reviews on Goodreads, and I think it was just because of the execution of the book. Some people didn't like that inside the book. There was a mix. It went back and forth between Rachel and Henry. So the chapters were Rachel and Henry's perspectives. But also, this is the part that I really enjoyed. And some people just didn't like it. And I totally understand. It happens. But inside the bookstore itself, there's a little room that they have, and they call it the Library of Letters. And this is where Rachel left her love letter to Henry. And basically, it's just a room full of these books where people come in and they write commentary inside the books. The books aren't for sale. They write commentary inside the books. They underline things that they really felt made some sort of impact on them. And then sometimes they leave letters to like loved ones or to just the next reader, giving their perspective on things. And that happens a lot in this book. So here's a sample of it right here. I don't know if you guys can see it that well, but it looks like pages on the side. They like print it to make it look like photocopy pages. I thought that was pretty cool how they did that. Some people thought that just made it a little bit confusing, a little bit cumbersome to read. I found it quite enjoyable. So I ended up giving this 5 stars, maybe, possibly. I really enjoyed it. I found it very interesting. So I think it's kind of technically a young adult contemporary. Very good book, very quick read as well. And then after that book, I started this book, and it was because a lot of people were like, oh, you should read this book. It's pretty good. Everybody's been talking about this book, no matter, whether it's word of mouth on the street or if it's at the bookstore or if it's just social media, but it's The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. And that's what the little cover looks like here. So this follows the story of Calla. Calla is, I believe she's 28 years old in this book, 25 or 28. I can't really remember for certain. She lives in Toronto with her mother and her stepfather. She just lost her job, and she's just trying to piece things together. She doesn't have really much interaction with her father until one day she gets a phone call from a friend of her father saying, your father has lung cancer and he's going to die at some point. You really should come up and meet him. So she probably had just very few interactions, like a handful of interactions with him when she was really young. And then it just kind of stopped from there. So naturally, she's kind of bitter. She's very confused and conflicted as to how she should address this. She ends up going up there after her stepfather talks to her and says you should give this a shot. It doesn't hurt. So she flies up. I guess I should tell you where she goes. She goes to Alaska. This is where her father has lived all his life. So she goes to Alaska and she meets her father. She meets the friend that called. And she also meets this pilot, and his name, oh gosh, I always forget what his name is. What is it? Jonah. I should remember that. It's actually a character I've read in the past. I used that name before. But anyways, Jonah is a pilot at her father's airport. He does like flies and people like tourists, and sometimes he'll fly out packages. Sometimes he'll pick up medicine and bring it. Obviously, Alaska is very unique, and the area that they live in, they don't have Amazon Prime. They don't have anything fancy like that. It's a process to get supplies to the area they live. So she has to adapt to all this because she came from an area where things are so much easier to obtain, and it's not muddy. It's nice where she came from. She can wear her high heels. Here it's the opposite. She can't wear her high heels because she gets mud on them, and it's a journey for her. So it is a love story. I feel like it was a little bit insta love for me, which was kind of not my cup of tea. But it did keep me captivated. The writing itself is very good. There is some steam-worthy moments if you are into the steamy. There was one particular scene that was a little bit steamy, and I was like, okay, all right, cool. But other than that, it's a really good book. The only grudge I have is, yes, it was insta love. That kind of bothered me. And I just feel like the relationship development wasn't really there. It was like, boom, it happened. which ties in with the instant love, but I felt like the character development lacked as well. I didn't really see too much development except for with the main character. I think she got a sense of why what her father does was so important to that community. And I think she got a sense of appreciation for the community at the end of all of it. Um, so I felt like that was good. And then the ending was lackluster. I kind of wanted more from the ending. It just didn't feel like it was um, properly executed. So I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars. Again, that's my personal take. You could take it or leave it, whatever. The next book that I read, and this was totally by fluke. I actually requested the notorious RBG, The Life and Times of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, from the library. I did not realize that it was the Young Readers Edition. But I went ahead and read it anyways because, as you could tell, it's a fairly thick book. And, it has the facts I want to learn. I'm really fascinated with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I know I don't talk too much politics on here. I try to avoid politics as much as possible on my channel, but I really wanted to read her case because she's just an amazing role model. She was one of the first women to graduate from Harvard with a law degree. She fought tooth and nail to get into law. She had to fight tooth and nail to get to the Supreme Court. I mean, she had a lot of things going on and so many interesting facts in here. So I didn't know that a woman could not wear pants in the Supreme Court until 1993. 1993, you guys. That is insane. Insane. So there was a lot of interesting facts in here, and I found it just a really compelling read. Now, if it's a really compelling read for me as, a 30-something-year-old person, I can only imagine what a kid would think. I would always recommend these types of books, in particular to teenagers. Maybe a teenager that doesn't want to jump into a big, lengthy, boring, dry book about a particular political figure or any sort of figure. But, this is a good stepping stool, if you will. So I really enjoyed this book. I found it very informative. There was a couple things that I myself did not know about the Supreme Court system and how it worked. And it was really informative how it broke it down. There's even a part where at the very end they have like a little glossary that kind of tells young adults what certain verbiage is inside the Supreme Court. So I think I ended up giving this 5 stars just on the fact that I think it's something that any young adult should pick up and read just to kind of get educated, not only on one of the pioneers of women's rights or actually gender rights. Ruth Bader Ginsburg is one of those people that doesn't like to just exclusively say that she's fighting for women's rights. She tries to fight for gender equality across the board. So I definitely think that's something that any kid should pick up and give it a shot. So yes, I got that done, I think within a day. I did like a 24-hour readathon on Saturday. So overall, it looks like the year is starting off really good, considering the fact that I was able to finish at least 10 books on the top of my game. Let me see here. I'm trying to see what other books I read, because there was a couple audiobooks I read too that I really enjoyed. The first one was My Love Story by Tina Turner. I ended up giving that 5 stars. I've always been a huge fan of Tina Turner. Ever since I was like 10 years old and my mom introduced me to her music. Even with Ike Turner Review, even though I don't like Ike Turner, she's just really a strong force. And I read My Love Story. It was on hold forever at the library, and it was really impressive. It talked about how she got into Buddhism, her personal life with Ike, how she overcame all those obstacles that she faced, not only as somebody that went through domestic violence, but as a Black woman. She talked about, having to go down south during the 60s to perform, and she would have these situations where it was just not a good situation to be in. So she talked about that. She talked about her present day life. I didn't realize how sickly she has become over the years, but she's still going on. She's still writing her book. She wrote her book. She helped with getting a musical together about her life story. Just amazing things. And that is actually one of my favorite books for this year. I definitely recommend it to you all if you like to read historical fiction, for God's sakes, historical nonfiction or biographies. Another book that I finished up was Paperbacks from Hell. And it's about the paperbacks from the 70s and the 80s, the horror paperbacks. And it was written by Grady Hendrix. I freaking love this book. I love Grady Hendrix so much. He's just such a really cool guy. I actually had the opportunity to meet him last summer. He's just such a really cool, crazy guy. One book I didn't particularly care for was his recent book, We Sold Our Souls. It just wasn't my cup of tea. I probably should try to at least finish it, but I wasn't too big of a fan of it. However, Paperbacks from Hell was really good. It just gave a historical count of all the books that was released in the 70s and 80s that was horror related, and it was just phenomenal. I mean, he had such a good sense of humor throughout the books, and there was a lot of books that I could remember reading, when I got to that age where I was able to read those things without freaking my family out. Yeah, so I had some good memories with that, but I also learned about other books that inspired him as well as an author. I really enjoyed that book. So if you guys want to check that out, let me go ahead and pull up. See, I already returned it to the library. I should have kept it out just a little bit longer. But this is the Grady Hendrix cover, if you guys can see it. So that was a really good book. I also finished up the book Text Me When You Get Home by Kayleen Schaefer. I gave that 4 stars, and it's a really empowering book as well. I like to recommend it to women of all ages. It talks about our solidarity, and it actually boils down to whenever you're leaving a friend's house and they say, text me when you get home, or you're leaving the bar and your girlfriend says, text me when you get home. It talks about that solidarity, using actions like that. And it was an incredible book. It was a really fast read. I believe it only took me about 5 hours to read altogether. And then I also read The Beatles All Our Yesterdays by Jason Quinn. And that's right here. Let me just go ahead and blow this up. There we go. So you guys can see Text Me When I Get Home and The Beatles. I'm a big Beatles fan, so I ended up reading that graphic novel because I bought it for my father-in-law for Christmas. And I was just kind of curious at how good it was going to be. So I was flipping through it. Pretty impressive. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The graphics were okay. The content was okay. It was a really good subject matter. So, but yes, I believe that is all the books I really read. No, I did have a 2-star. Yeah, I forgot about that. I actually finished this today, and it's Beware That Girl by Teresa Totten. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews on this one, and I decided I wanted to give it a shot. Hopefully you guys can see that. I believe it's kind of for young adult. It's supposed to be like a young adult dark psychological thriller, and it follows the story of these 2 girls, Kate and Olivia. And Kate is she has her own issues, like psychological issues, and she becomes friends with Olivia, and they end up being in a very interesting situation. I don't want to go into detail about it because if somebody wants to read it, I don't want to spoil it. But yeah, it wasn't my cup of tea. I would say it was about 8 hours to read it. I did like an audiobook on it. And it just wasn't something that I cared for. Sorry. They do have like a supposed twist at the end. The twist, it wasn't very twisty. It was very easy to follow that. It was very tropey. Now, there are some trigger things that I would say for this. It does have, it is full of abuse, parental abuse in particular, and there is sexual abuse. Just, it's really intense. There's parts of it that was really intense that was almost unbearable to listen to. But overall, it just wasn't one of those books that I would care to recommend. Other than that, that's all the books I've finished up so far. There's a few other ones I know of because, like I said, I had 10 total that I read, but they weren't something that I felt, was worthy of a review. Now, the next book that I'm starting now is The Girl with the Red Balloon by Catherine Locke. And I'm only on chapter 3 on this. So far, I really enjoy it. So I'm hoping I could get a full review done. Hopefully this week. We're going to see. But other than that, that is all I have for this particular video. Let me know what you guys are reading on your end. I have quite a few books I want to get reading. I know that Aaron recently recommended Educated to me, and that I'm dying because I really want to read that, but I'm getting all my holds now from the library, so I'm like, okay, for real, this sucks. Not really, but So yes, let me know what you guys are reading right now in the comments below. If you read any of these books and you have thoughts on them, definitely go ahead and share those. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Either if you're in agreement with me or not, that's the beauty of BookTube. We don't have to necessarily agree on what we like and don't like, right? But other than that, thank you so much for joining me after all this time. Hopefully I continue to recover and my next video has less costs. All right, guys, take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.